Alright, I wanted to show the difference in shimming and spin for the bearing right here. This is the bevel gear, and I don't know if you can tell, but as I move the gearbox, the bevel gear rotates, which it should if it has really no friction. So you can see there as I spin it, it kind of spins backwards a little bit. You can see that. So you got to understand that even though the bearings allow a little bit more space in the bushings, the fact is you can have it tight and not be able to tell when you try to touch it. It's going to look like, you know, it's still spinning all right, but see right here how it kind of stops. Okay, there's basically less than 0.1 millimeter up and down movement. It's kind of hard to tell because when you push the bearing or the gear up, the bearing on the inside here kind of moves too. So what I do is not only the first test where you see it move back and forth, you see how easy it moves, but I check by turning this over and putting a flashlight inside, and you look at the axle. Now if you can see a little bit of a gap, you're good to go, which there is. So this is actually shimmed properly in the spacing here. Now just to show the differences, here's what the shims are in there. It's about 0.3, okay, that's in there right now. So we've got a 0.1 millimeter on top and a 0.2 millimeter on bottom. So I put these down, and here's what we had before. I want to show how tiny this shim is, just so you can see, because I think that the reason this is tiny is because of friction. And you can see right there the difference in spacing. See how tiny that is? That is extremely tiny. This is what the shim size I normally work with is like that. So that being that tiny, it kind of makes me think that it might have came down to friction and came like that. Anyways, backing out, now I'll put all three of these in here. And I'm going to check it. See this one, because it's just not counting all three because I'm so tiny. Give me just a second here. I can't trust it. Obviously that's not one of the something's wrong here. And the shim's go around here. Yes, we haven't seen my thing arms. Here's your accident. Shim off the floor. Okay, let's try it again. Right now we have 0. Show me. I've got all three of these in my hand. Alright, now that's better. That's what I was looking for. So we're getting about 0.4, a little higher than that. I don't know how well that shows on camera. The camera doesn't seem to show that through the glare very well. Okay, so there's at least a 0.1 or more difference. Now to show bevel to pinion. So we saw that the thing spins better. I mean, you can really just see me move it and it will move the gear a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to do a bevel to pinion check. Get this in the body here and pin it down in place. Where's the other pin? Let's use this pin first. Then pin this one. If it will pin. There we go. It's kind of a tight fit. Seems that I'm getting tight fits today. Alright, so you want to take the two screws and tighten down, of course. Where are they? This is not cool, man. They're right here. I just can't think this morning. That's for sure. Alright, zoom out here so I can kind of show what I am doing. Tighten these down evenly. Now, if you were to look down, straight down the pistol grip, you can see that there is an angle to the gearbox, which means that this pistol grip is the reason for that. The angle is slight. It's very slight, but it is there. So to modify it to be straighter is going to take some strategy, that's for sure. Because the way this comes in, this would have to be modified too. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and put the motor in and tighten down this. Make sure we get this in here. Try not to strip the screws. I'm just tightening, hand tightening. Alright, you can see it's flush. And then go in here, break out your screwdriver, and check bevel to pinion. Now it's too tight. So the reason is because there is only 0.2 on the bottom of the bevel, and once you put the 0.3 it will be perfect. So you cannot have a 0.1 on top of the bevel gear, and from looking at it I don't think it possibly can. The bearings come out a little bit, and the top of the bevel I don't think it can grind on the gearbox. However, because friction's a little different, you'll hear a little bit of a different noise. I'm not going to worry about that, because to have a perfect setup would require doing all kinds of modifications of cutting down and so forth, when you can have pretty close to already perfect. So I'm going to take off the 0.1 on top, add it to the bottom, and the bevel gear will not be tight. So what that means is it will be ready to go, because as long as there's that movement between teeth to teeth, then it's ready. And I will show you that pretty soon. And lastly, you want to make sure that the motor is at the correct motor height, which I'm pretty sure it is, because looking at the bevel's teeth markings and the pinion markings, you can see exactly where the motor height is, where it has been. So okay, so we're going to pull this off here. And that's what's on. Along with the ship. I don't know what's in there. I was going to check and see if the bearings come up just enough. Plus the, you can see right there, it's fine. Plus there's now all these, the other gear. If you closely look at it, it's very tiny. That allows it to spin over the gearbox. So we put this in here. Put this in here. Now, before I get to that, I want to show that, you know, the bevel's pin, the motor height is corrected to the right spot. If you were to look really close in here, you can see the markings on the bevel gear, and it is marked, so it's like this, basically. If I was to show you on video, that's how it's marked. Okay, it's in the right spot. So we're going to confirm this by moving this shell right here, grabbing this shell, putting it in there, and getting the body. Now the reason I do this with the body is to make sure that there's no gap issues. So you want to hold this in. Grab this. Bring everything as straight as possible. You can put tape and stuff like that, and then to be straight. So you just hold it like this. Yep, so it's the same. So hold it like this, put this up there. And tighten this down in here. Okay, so you can see it's flush there, holding it very straight. Yep, it's straight. Okay, now what you want to see is from this angle how it's in there. Now I'm going to use a tool to check behind the gear. So for instance, I'm using a little mirror, and I just hold this up. Again, make sure that the gearbox does not move on you and that it is straight. And I just place this down underneath the gear, right at the location. That way I can see. Okay, so yes, it is confirmed. I went over to the kitchen area since all the light comes shining down. I put this up against the pinion from this angle because the post is in the way over here for the anti-reverse latch. And when I checked, you know, involving around the pinion like this, I could see the teeth mesh into the bevel gear, and it's at the proper motor height. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and take it apart and then check the inside for bevel to pinion. So now you check bevel to pinion inside here. And sure enough, it's too tight. So I went down one turn. Yeah, I went down one turn. Okay, I'm going to try to show this. It's kind of hard to show probably from this angle, but if you get your flathead in here, you can hear the rattling between teeth to teeth here. And if you rotate it, I don't really know how well you can see that on camera from here, especially with my hand in the way. Anyways, if you rotate it with the screwdriver, you can see it's really easy to turn right there. So if I go up one turn and I try to do it again, it's a little stiffer. So if I were to go one more turn, which is going to put it aligned where it's touching and it's very tight at this point, you have no movement between teeth to teeth. And trying to turn it is way more resisting. So I go back one, Oh, my bad. My hands have grease on them, so kind of lost a screwdriver for that reason. Definitely easier to turn the pinion. Go back one more. Really easy to turn the pinion, okay? These turns, it was at the maximum turn. One turn down is not much of anything. A 2 turn down, we're talking about very, very tiny increments. So this right now is better at the 2 turn than it is the 1 turn, than it is the no turn. With the watt meter, I can go up slightly, half a turn, and see if the amperage is better. From my experience, if the easier it is to turn by hand, the easier it is the motor to turn. So by itself. So once I hook this up to a watt meter, it should show the same results because it's easier to turn. It makes sense. Amperage will show if it's higher or lower depending on how hard it is to turn that bevel gear with everything in here. So that will be the final result for bevel to pinion, but right now this is where I'm going to put it, and I'll slightly move up or down depending on the amperage of the test, so you get the best mesh possible. Overall though, this is starting to come together really nice. I have sanded this down, and you can see it's nice and flat now with the teeth, which it should have been, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit more. I red Loctite the screw to the piston just to make sure it's good and covered. I saw you had blue Loctite in there. I don't put a ton of red Loctite, I just put like a drip or two, and then I tighten it on. So you should still be able to untighten that. I untighten everything all the time. And then as far as with this, I'm going to show you that I can shim the sector and spur within 5 minutes. I don't know, that might be somebody might be like, I don't know about that, but I'll show you how much easier it is to do. The bevel to pinion would be very easy if you didn't have to assemble the body and grip all the time, just to make sure you've got it perfect. It's a pain in the ass to do these screws, the screws to the gearbox, put it in the body, the pins, and the motor adjusted properly. So, and then having to do it again with the half shell, with this body and grip, and using the tool that I was using to check and see where the pinion meshes to the bevel and on the motor height. So I mean, that's a lot of more time to spend because it takes too long to put that together. But anyways, we'll be moving on to now the trigger, and I wanted to look at this a little bit. This feels perfect, and it looks like there's an O-ring there. So I'm looking at everything here. That looks good. The spring to the tappet plate feels really strong. String to the trolley feels really medium-ish. And the cutoff looks to be in great shape. We will check with the trolley and see what kind of mechanical, excuse me, what the hell's going on? Mechanical cutoff we have. Okay, so we'll get to that.